Good morning. 5:59 in the morning here in Western Iowa. It's Monday, January 27th. Happy birthday to my dad. Happy birthday, Pastor Jay, and all those who celebrate. We're looking at the weather. You know, the snowstorm for Iowa that was coming. Well, it's not. It's going to be rain. The cold air is kind of gone. So we'll go over the upper air pattern. We'll show you a severe weather threat for Texas, though, all coming up. In fact, we'll start right now with our hazards in the west because that's our main player right now is that upper level low that's cut off from the jet stream. It's going to take its time to move through the southwest before it accelerates into the plains and east. So right now in California is where we see a lot of our watches and warnings. Freeze watches in central California, freeze warnings along the coast, winter storm warnings in the mountains, winter weather advisories in the foothills of the mountains. Just a lot going on there. Also into northwestern Arizona, we have winter storm watches and winter weather advisories here. You get up into Nebraska, winds increasing, warming up, dry. Red flag warning here. Winds across the Great Lakes with lots of wind advisories, so be advised it's going to be windy. A little bit of snow off of Lake Erie. It's mostly frozen over, but a little bit of open water for some lake effect there in Pennsylvania, into New York, and then upstate New York off of Lake Ontario. Lake Ontario is where the heavier lake effect snow is going to be. All right, it's warmer than yesterday at this time across the northern plains and upper Midwest, including here in Iowa. And that warm-up's going to accelerate as we go through the day with southwest winds. It is colder than yesterday for Oklahoma, much of Texas, through Missouri, into the Ohio River Valley, into the northeast, but warming up, thawing out in the southeast. Those current temperatures look like this. I mean, we're in the teens and into the 20s. It was 12 degrees hours ago. It's like 14 now. So the temperature's already going up, even though this is the coldest part of the day here in western Iowa. And that cold air is all the way down into Texas. I mean, it's pretty normal to be in the 20s, though, in West Texas, North Texas this time of year, maybe slightly below average. And there you see 40s and even near 50 or some 50s in the southeast to start the day. So thawing out from your snowstorm there. Excuse me, how you doing? All right, surface today. Our slow-moving southwest system moving slowly through the southwest with rain and snow, some thunderstorms maybe, San Diego and LA. And it's a chance of rain, Texas Gulf Coast through the southeast, and there's your snow up there, upper Midwest through the Great Lakes. For tomorrow, that continues up there in the northeast, and our southwest system now bringing rain and snow to Arizona, mainly depending on elevation and location. Same for New Mexico. Greater chance of showers moving into Texas, Oklahoma. And here's how that 48-hour precipitation looks like. So some decent amounts through the southeast, up to getting close to an inch for Louisiana, Mississippi, really lesser than that, lesser amounts. And the southwest, about the same. So, we're talking maybe quarter to a half an inch, but some places getting a little bit more than that, especially into Arizona. And some of that is falling as snow, especially in Arizona, higher elevations, places like Flagstaff and along the Mogollon Rim. But even you see the mountains around LA and into central California and into Nevada and southern Utah. We're seeing some snow in southwestern parts of Colorado like Durango. And there's your lake effect snow. So still getting up to half a foot off of Lake Erie for places like Erie, Pennsylvania, into New York State, but greater amounts as you go up to Lake Ontario. We're talking close to a foot here, maybe a little more for some. So that's the way that's going. Wednesday, we have that chance of severe weather coming into Texas with a warm front, unsettled weather, that upper level low nearby. And so a little dot of severe weather not far from San Antonio here, with scattered showers and storms throughout eastern New Mexico all the way into Oklahoma and Louisiana, with snow and rain and snow on the backside for the Four Corners. There you still see our lake effect snow machine going, especially off of Lake Ontario. But even though Lake Erie is like 90% frozen over, there's a little bit of open water left. So a little bit of those snow jets going. All right, let's check out our severe weather threat for Wednesday. This is for Texas. And so really northwest of San Antonio and west of the I-35 corridor for the slight risk. But the marginal risk gets into the Big Bend, well, not quite the Big Bend, but down to Del Rio, all the way up to Dallas-Fort Worth and San Antonio and the I-35 corridor included in the marginal risk. So you could see some isolated severe thunderstorms here on Wednesday. Let's check out our upper air pattern when I switch back to that. There we go. And so here's what's going on right now. We have, quite a bit of vorticity here with our closed low over Southern California. This is going to move through the southwest and then eject. Not quite as it was showing before. The models have switched a little bit, taking this more of a southern route and almost straight across the U.S. And so that's making a big difference for our forecast, say, here in Iowa. So as a bowling ball, you may have heard it described as that because that's how it looks. But it's a closed low, which means it's a strong vorticity. When it opens up, it means it's weakening and becomes more of a wave, which this will do as it heads east. But when it's a closed low, it's a pretty strong storm here. And out ahead of it, again, we talked about defluence or difluence with those upper air winds fanning out, which lowers the pressure. You have to replace that air with rising air. So creates more instability out ahead of the storm as well. So we see that. And then as we get into, say, this is Thursday at noon, and as that moves into the plains, central plains, and into the mid-south, north of that, we're going to see some instability, but this is rain because the cold air is mostly gone with the warm-up that's happening right now. And again, as this low moves eastward, it's starting to weaken, open up a little bit, and it skedaddles out of here by the weekend. And then, really interesting, we start to see, look at this high pressure building in. And so the cold air is up in Canada. Some of it's getting into the Great Lakes Northeast, but most of the country warming up. And then watch this feature down here, sneaking under the high as an upper level low moving into Texas. This isn't until the 5th. So that's going to be worth watching for maybe an added severe weather threat. And then we see another trough digging into the west, say by the 7th for a quick cool down. But things are pretty progressive, meaning they're moving quickly, moving right along. And so our weather is going to be active as we go through the first half of February. I did want to show you the GFS. I'm sorry, that was the GFS upper air. This is the European at the surface for rain and rain and snow. And so this morning we have the rain in the southeast, and as we go through time, things kind of weaken there, but we have our jet stream, polar jet, going across the Great Lakes. Here's a nice little clipper moving across the Great Lakes, which is going to give us lake enhanced and even some lake effects snow as that goes. But that colder air is locked up into the Great Lakes and Northeast. It's warming up otherwise here. Now we're starting to see the effects of our upper level low as we get into Wednesday, into Texas. And again, that warm front that we showed you on the surface, maybe some thunderstorms here, some isolated severe around Dallas, trailing back along I-35 corridor northwest of San Antonio. That activity really gets going late Thursday into late Wednesday into early Thursday, and then moves across the southeast. Here's our rain for Kansas and Iowa. The cold air is just gone. A little bit of a mix down here in Kansas Friday at 6 a.m., but the coldest part of the day, so maybe a little bit of stripe of a mix as that storm exits, but not a big snowstorm that we were showing you a few days ago for the plains and the Midwest. And then as we get into the weekend, we start to see a system moving into the Pacific Northwest, quite a bit of rain here in Northern California, and snow moving into the Intermountain West. So those trends, as we get into maybe the second week of February, actually this is the 3rd through the 9th, but we will see some of that colder air with that quick trough on the west. That's going to stay warm south and east, and precipitation-wise, quite a bit. At least a decent chance of above average precipitation, most of the country being left out in the southeast and for Florida, the southwest and Florida. But the southwest getting, the activity now with the cutoff low that's moving through. So I'm sorry, Midwest. You've been missing out on snow this year, and this next system is not going to bring you snow. It's going to rain, which could be good news for me because I'm moving to Texas on Friday, so I don't have to drive on ice. Maybe that's good. All right, that's my update for today. We'll update you again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in. The Weather Mike. Have a great Monday.